Hello everyone and welcome back to the Meet Magento UK Merchant Track. Our next speaker is a real driving force in the Magento community who I've had the pleasure of knowing for many years. She's always extremely welcoming at any event that you meet her at. She's an international speaker, host and organiser of Meet Magento New York and COO at MageMojo. Please welcome Marsha Naidoo and thank you very much for being part of Meet Magento UK.
13 January 1949. Race riots break out in Durban, South Africa. Mayville was just one of the areas taken by surprise. There was no time. The Pillay family fled, along with many other families. A baby was left behind in her cot. Homes went up in flames and many lost their lives. The baby's granddad was able to safely make his way back and rescue her. But their family eventually lost their home in the Group Areas Act. This divided suburbs based on race. They, like others, were paid some ridiculously low sum for a 5-room home, which housed the extended family of 17 people. The baby left behind in her cot was my mom. And any chance of my existence was almost extinguished right then. Life as the extended family knew it would change forever. But my story and experience of apartheid and discrimination pales in comparison to the experience of so many others. George Floyd, not 1949, 2020. Freddie Gray, Baltimore, 2015. A 25-year-old Black man who died in police custody after asking multiple times for medical assistance and stating, "I can't breathe." Sound familiar? Eric Garner, New York, 2014. Died after a police chokehold. Also repeated the words, "I can't breathe." It's not always about race. Matthew Shepard, Wyoming, 1998. A gay American student who was beaten, brutally tortured, and left to die. He was 22. An Indian woman in Uttar Pradesh, India, was on her way to a court hearing to testify against 2 men who had allegedly raped her. She was dragged into a field, doused with petrol, and set alight. In the UK, nearly 33% of Muslim students report either abuse or crime in their place of study. Many of us stand in solidarity around the world. Fighting for diversity, inclusion, and an end to racism breaks down geographic boundaries. I am Marsha Naidoo of MageMojo, a cloud hosting company for Magento. I, together with MageMojo, am also the host of Meet Magento New York. Let's talk about how we understand diversity and inclusion. What we can do on our own to bring change and understand our own bias. What can D&I mean for our companies, and how do we manage this? What is diversity? Is that the same as inclusion? Diversity is complex and speaks of numbers, and inclusion is more about impact. Diversity is about how you see the world through your own experience of inherent traits that we are born with, like gender, ethnicity, and acquired traits that we gain, such as experience, education. What you're looking at now is the 4 layers of diversity wheel, which shows just the complexity of the diversity filters through which we all process stimuli and information. This leads to our assumptions, drives our own behaviors, and ultimately impacts others. Tina Tan refers to inclusion as the intentional, ongoing effort to ensure that diverse people with different identities are able to fully participate in all aspects of the work of an organization, including leadership positions, decision-making process. It refers to the way that individuals are valued as respected members and welcomed into an organization or a community. I love Verna Meyer's analogy. Diversity is being asked to the party. Inclusion is being asked to dance. So we can mandate diversity, but we still have to work at cultivating inclusion. If we are not intentionally including, you know this, right? We are unintentionally excluding. The Pew Research Center and the US Census, for that matter, tells us that by the year 2050, 55% of the US population will be ethnic minorities, which means our white population will be the new minority. In the UK, approximately 30% of births in 2011 were to parents of non-European ancestry. So we're already there. We're on a trajectory to greater diversity. The question is that diversity reflected in our workplaces? If not, warning bells should be going off for us all. If 55% of the population will be ethnic minorities, we need to make sure that a sufficient number end up in STEM careers for tech to thrive. Whatever the composition of our population, should that not be represented in our workforce? For our businesses to thrive, perhaps our employee base should look more like our customer base. We need to recreate the cultural diversity of our countries within our companies. Janet Stovall helped me understand that many of us here have this really powerful tool available to us. Our workplaces. Just think how many of us there are in the workforce. In the US, 157 million Americans, about 33 million in Great Britain, and 228.7 million in the EU, even if my numbers are somewhat incorrect. We can all agree there are, to use the technical term, lots of us in the workforce of various races and backgrounds. And hopefully, we're going to stay there, right? Do you hear me, COVID-19? What if we made sure those workplaces were diverse and inclusive? We spend a significant proportion of our lives at work. If we spent that time with people who did not look like us, our world outside of work could be a totally different place. This can be our reality if we guide our businesses toward inclusion. We probably can't immediately make it fair, but we can work toward making it better. Change will not happen overnight, and it will not be easy. It's also not something we should be waiting on our HR departments to accomplish for us. Did you hear that? Sigh of relief from our HR folks. But seriously, we can all help, even in small ways, to effect change. Imagine what is possible if each of us took even one step in our communities or our workplaces toward being more inclusive. So the answer lies with you. You is how we make change. Our workplaces can be so instrumental. The lessons we learn there about diversity can transform the way we perceive others outside our work and how we respond to each other. Change. Change starts with figuring out where change is required. We may not even understand our own biases, do we? How do we check on that? You may want to try hidden bias tests like those developed by psychologists at Harvard, the University of Virginia, and Washington, called IATs, implicit association tests. These measure unconscious bias. Willingness to determine our own potential biases is really important to understanding the roots of stereotypes and prejudice in our society. To find the tests, go to projectimplicit.com, which uses 90 categories to check your unconscious bias. You're shown pictures and words that relate to the picture, and how quickly you hit the button determines your unconscious bias. The great news is we can change our biases if we know what they are. .3%. This is the proportion of large US companies in the US that has CEOs named John, compared with 4.1% that have CEOs who are women. That's right, there are fewer companies run by women in the US than by men named John. Diversity stats in the tech industry alert us the industry is overwhelmingly white and male. You may ask if that is due to meritocracy. Are the best people being selected regardless of their background? Data does not support this. D&I in tech needs attention, and addressing it is about being socially responsible. In addition, if it's effectively managed, it can be a source of competitive advantage. For some, it is vital to their growth strategy. What does research indicate D&I can mean for your business? The data is loud and clear. Effective management of a diverse workforce translates into bottom line results. Ethnically diverse companies perform 33% better than the norm. Studies show that companies in the top quartile for gender diversity were 21% more likely, and for racial or ethnic diversity, 33% more likely to have financial returns above their national industry mean. Studies do not claim the relationship is causal, but that companies that commit to diverse leadership are more successful. It has become increasingly difficult and costlier to secure great talent in both emerging and developed markets. Diversity in leadership can help a company secure access to more sources of talent, gain a competitive recruitment advantage, and improve its global relevance. A Gallup poll found that only 13% of employees were actively engaged at work. And the management behavior most likely to affect engagement demonstrates strong commitment to diversity. Engagement can make a huge dent in employee turnover. It helps improve retention. This is particularly true with people who do not match the profile of the majority. Engagement is one of the most important factors employees consider, especially when deciding whether to leave for a new company. It improves employee satisfaction. Ethnic minorities report higher job and life satisfaction in more diverse workplaces, provided the workplace is diverse enough. For minority workers, for example, this boost in satisfaction kicks in when representation exceeds 15% of the workforce. Results were poorer with the token effort. The presence of sufficient numbers of minority group members or women in traditionally male-dominated environments boosts individuals' confidence and self-esteem, as well as breaking down the prejudice that led to the exclusion in the first place. A non-discrimination policy, not that it's not necessary, was less important than a supportive culture among colleagues and supervisors. Neurological research shows that our most productive, innovative, and collaborative times at work happen when we feel like we're part of the team, when we feel included and respected. Our bodies create hormones that raises our performance at work. Companies that commit to diversity can become more reflective of a diverse customer base, their decision-making behavior, as well as how to impact it. An increased customer perspective allows for more effective response to market shifts and new customer needs. Proponents of diversity assert employers should hire women and minorities to attract and understand the needs of a demographically diverse customer base. Further, a close match between employee and customer demographics may improve performance by reducing communication costs among people from the same racial, ethnic, gender, or age group. Diverse teams offer broader perspectives and problem-solving tools from varied experiences. They are better placed to develop winning innovations. Research directly links diversity with strategy, stating that strategic innovation is the result of bringing a diverse set of voices into the strategy dialogue, creating conversations about opportunities in underserved markets, focusing on passions that lie outside the normal company repertoire, also developing new perspectives on both capabilities and customer needs. A Harvard Business Review found that the more dimensions of diversity were represented, the stronger the relationship was between diversity and innovation outcomes. And the more diverse enterprises had higher innovation revenues. Data shows repeatedly that a more diverse workforce is not only more efficient and more profitable, it also offers companies the chance to hear perspectives that were not previously present. This is crucial in the tech industry, especially in leadership, to ensure they are creating solutions and technology for the modern world, which comprises people from various walks of life. Apart from numbers, tech is about innovation. New and diverse voices capitalizing on individuality are necessary for continued innovation and appealing to a broader market. What's more, the relationship between diversity and performance is likely to grow in importance. As we said earlier, we're on a trajectory to greater diversity. Regulators in some European countries have introduced diversity targets for boards like those in the UK Equality Act of 2010. There are affirmative action policies like those in South Africa. Multinational companies are under increasing social pressure, if not legal pressure, to increase the representation of women and minorities in their workforce. As a result of trends like these, the relationship between D&I and performance will become more pronounced. We need to be sure we are attracting the talent we need to grow. Research shows that college graduates, they are moving in large numbers toward places that have a higher number of artists, cultural creativity, diversity, and tolerance. And the highest correlation of all, a large gay and lesbian population. What's more, countries which have increased rights for the LGBT community also have a higher per capita income. We have to figure out how we attract the talent we need. Some strategies include looking outside of traditional sources, like perhaps instead of relying on just employee referrals, look at associations for minority groups in tech. Your competition is probably drawing on the same sources as everyone else. You want to try accessing untapped labor markets, as well as using strategies like perhaps blind screening for applicants. Research finds that 60% more minority applicants and 125% more women were selected for interviews as compared to traditional resume screening using blind techniques. Sure, there are strategies to give you access to a broader talent pool. But focusing on inclusion programs that focus only on hiring people who fit a diverse profile has risks like creating a situation of tokenism. This is where candidates are hired only for their personal background without a thorough review of their professional background. The candidates themselves can be negatively affected if they feel they're only there to meet your diversity quota. Silicon Valley workers say they would rather see a handful of skilled candidates influence the course of a company than a wave of diversity hires in low-level positions who are just there to meet some target. It may be better to focus on promoting diversity and a culture of inclusion throughout the company and focus on more than just the hiring funnel. And it's not really about a simple recipe or one size fits all. It requires continuous action, strong leadership, strong commitment to change, support, and resources to accomplish goals. A commitment to D&I should be treated with the same commitment as other growth goals in the company. D&I must be supported by the CEO with buy-in from middle management and various company levels, accountability for delivery, and again, sufficient resources, like with other goals, to accomplish them. Organizations must formally train managers. I'll come back to training in best practices and hold them accountable through, for example, making retention goal achievement part of a manager's performance evaluation, or tying accountability on diversity metrics to managerial evaluation and compensation. A McKinsey study shows that companies succeeding on I&D are able to clearly articulate the link between their I&D goals and specific business growth priorities. So they've spent time investing in understanding how I&D links to value drivers like customer insight, innovation, decision-making, which are performance drivers or enablers for specific business metrics like productivity, customer retention, or risk management. Leading companies use this thinking to prioritize the I&D initiatives they want to invest in. But they have to ensure they're aligned with their overall growth strategy. They recognize the need for this to go hand in hand with building a truly inclusive organizational culture. In addition, adaptation to various parts of their businesses is necessary, as well as varying geographic and socio-cultural contexts. Local customization and attention to regulatory context is required, which means we all have varying starting points. Training is very necessary of people at all levels on subjects like unconscious bias, analytic tools and scorecards, diversity metrics and performance management, to attempt to remove bias, measure diversity openly, make sure everyone is evaluated based on performance and results. Improving performance management to be more developmental is a growing trend to attempt to ensure the process for promotion and rewards is more transparent and fair. Your team needs to develop skills for listening and communication to allow for open, transparent communication about succession, potential, career growth. The ability to talk about where people are allows them to internalize their performance, ask for coaching, and continuously improve. Openness in itself drives D&I conversations to improve. Documenting metrics on D&I and continuously monitoring progress is essential. This can include annual or biannual surveys. Managing D&I does not have to mean focusing only on the needs of minority employees or being anti-white male, but getting all employees to perform to their potential by tapping the potential of all workforce members. It means accepting the range of variations among people by virtue of their age, education, social class background, job function, and personality style. The goal of diversity is also not to assimilate us all into some dominant culture, but to create a heterogeneous, inclusive culture. I am reminded of a quote from a very famous philosopher and childhood friend, Winnie the Pooh. The things that make me different are the things that make me. Thank you.
Thank you, Marsha. That was beautiful. It was a really beautiful talk, and I really appreciate you putting that together and presenting that for us here today. Unfortunately, we haven't got time for a Q&A, which I'm absolutely gutted about, because I myself have so many things that I want to talk to you about and ask you. So I think maybe if it's okay with you, if we move that conversation onto Twitter, or I can see that you've got your email on there. So if there's anyone who has any questions for Marsha, please do reach out to her, because this is an extremely important topic, and I think the conversation needs to continue way after this talk and ongoing. Thank you very much, Marsha, again.
Absolutely. Looking forward to hearing from everyone. Thanks, JH.